Game day. Game day. Game day. Game day. Game day.
Hey, glad you could join us again this week for another edition of Game Day TV. I'm Jerry Young, along with legendary Coach Max Howell. And, Coach, let's just start. What did you see this weekend?
Jerry, I saw some things I haven't seen in the Southeastern Conference, maybe ever. A couple of things. One, let's talk about attitude.
Okay.
The interception, when Tua threw the interception at Alabama, and the Tennessee guy reaches up and grabs the football on the goal line, and the first thing he says is, "I got to run 97 yards to get this touchdown." You know, I don't ever remember hearing that conversation go on at all, much less a thought process. But he did, and Tennessee gets their first touchdown in 12 quarters. By the way, not an offensive touchdown.
That's right.
That was a defense. Here's another one. What happened to memorization? Every team I saw this week, when they flash the sign in for the play, everybody goes to the wristband
That's right.
to reconfirm it. Gosh, we had either great memories or we had a small playbook. I can't figure out which one of that. But here's one that really got me. There were two more that it just really caught me by surprise. One is in the Alabama-Tennessee. Tennessee calls a flea flicker.
Right.
And they run it, they line it up, and they do it from a spread, and they pitch it back, and the quarterback's ready to throw. And all 10 others are blocking on the line of scrimmage with no wide receiver going out. They get a sack.
Well,
Alabama does.
do you think he's supposed to remind which receiver is supposed to go out
He should
and
have
catch
called
it?
that in the huddle, or at least flashed the sign.
Draw it in the dirt.
Absolutely. Now, the last one, though, beat them all. It was the Auburn-Arkansas game. Auburn had just completed a long pass down the field, first and 10 at the 20. Steedham calls a read option, which doesn't call there out. He usually hands it off. He takes the ball, rides a dive back in, and keeps the ball, walks in the end zone for 20 yards. Lo and behold, come to find out, the camera went down. They only had 8 guys lined up, had 9 on the field. One of them laid down, tried to fake an injury to get a timeout. Officials disregarded all that. Auburn scores 7-0.
Well,
That was some
stranger
of the
things
stuff.
have happened.
It was really a comical weekend for some of the things I watched.
We got a packed show for you today. We're going to, of course, Max is going to break down and overhaul 2 or 3 teams today, and we'll talk about all the SEC and the schools that they played. I'll have the high school report, and guess what, Max? We're going to talk brackets now. Some teams, I know it, some teams have made the playoffs. Yeah. Where they fit in the bracket, we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to review the top games and how the region stacks up as well. Max will talk about the big games coming up in the SEC, and he'll have his all-famous What's for Supper. And, Max, I'm already getting hungry.
Well, we're going to do that. I mean, look, we had a great meal last night, thanks to you, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Something you really need to kind of get clear. It's not going to be an abbreviated show today. We'll expand a little bit more on conversations. We only have like 5 games going on. Open this past week was Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. All those were open. Coming up this coming week, we'll only have Alabama, Auburn, and LSU is open. So it'll be a little more detail coming up on the games that we saw this week. The guys at the performance level that we saw, there's a lot to talk about.
You know, it's interesting that Auburn and Alabama are both off on the same weekend.
Yeah.
It's like the traffic in Birmingham and surrounding area will be half.
It really will be. So, you go back and look, and I don't know whether that was by request or by the look of the draw.
That's right.
Alabama, we know, Alabama's got LSU, and they're both off this week for next week. Auburn goes to Texas A&M. They need an off week to get ready for Texas A&M.
See the hard hat, folks? It'll be on his head when we come back. Let me remind you, if you'd like to follow us on Facebook, we'd appreciate it. Go to Ask Game Day TV on Facebook. Hit the like button. You can get our show there along with high school reports and a lot of other stuff that we do throughout the week. Okay, Max will be back. He'll be tearing down a team when we come back right here on Game Day TV.
The unexpected. The inevitable. The inconvenient. Life can be difficult. Make it a little easier. Alpha Insurance.
You can travel all over and you won't find another town with our name or our frame of mind. So much to do, so much to see. It comes down to
Welcome in, everyone. You know, you can't help but notice Max sitting over here in this bright. Hey, we get so many comments. By the way, if you want to comment on Max's hard hat, especially the color of it. Now, we had 2 or 3 colors to pick from.
Oh, yeah, they did. I've been criticized. Why don't we have a white one? Well, a white one shows too much blood. You know, I'll be the first to tell you that.
It's time for demolition and destruction. We've got demolition and overhaul, I should say. We've got 3 teams you want to talk about this week. We've already touched on Tennessee. Let's just go there.
Let's go there first. Of course, they lose 45-7. The reason, again, I wonder where it backward turned around, because these first 3 we're going to talk about, I mean, they're in disarray. I'm going to be very kind and politically correct. Tennessee.
Why?
Well, Tennessee comes in with 0-10 in the last 10 years since Coach Saban's been at Alabama. Well, by the way, they're 0-11 now. It was a pretty good ball game the first quarter, but I think Tennessee, they worked extremely hard, and they created some momentum a little bit, but just not enough. It appears, and I'm going to go back to the discipline, and the first thing I thought of as I'm watching the 2 huge penalties that Tennessee got that stopped the drive that Alabama picked up on and scored was a problem that you correct at practice every day. The defensive end can't put his hand in the throat of the offensive guy and choke him all the way back to the quarterback.
Well, he can, but you're going to get a 15-yard penalty.
That's right, he did, and he got the penalty, and it started.
That happened twice, didn't it?
It absolutely happened twice, and the same guy. See, so first thing I think of it, Coach Jones and him not having officials at practice every day. At that level, guys, you can't go through a practice at least twice a week that you don't have a full set of officials on the field. You do that, and I'm not talking about guys just walking in off the street and put a striped shirt on. I'm talking about guys that are registered officials, at least at the high school and college level, as opposed to the SEC level. So, anyway, they struggle. Alabama starts their number 2s in the middle of the third quarter, and they roll on just like they have been. Coach Saban, I think, once again, did a remarkable job using the media. We've talked about this. You and I talked about it at length last night. He is the best in America that really the naive young reporters feel like sometimes that he's attacking them. He's not. The fact is he's sending a message. He does the best psychological edge that can be gotten out of a media report that Nick Saban does for his team and the fans and other coaches, everybody that's affiliated with the program. He sends that message. He did it again the other night about the strength of the schedule here out, and he said, hey, the toughest part of our schedule is yet to come. We are ranked number 1 in the country, but we worked hard to get there. I mean, he's very honest and open with the thing, but he really gets – he said he's got a great job at Alabama, and he loves it. Well, for $11 million a year, I believe I could too. But that's just, no disrespect to him.
You don't make that much doing this
show? Not quite.
Okay.
I'm applying for
that's because
my relief.
Pay our producers too much, probably.
That's look, we know in the plush surroundings that we come to every week to get this done.
That's right.
However, Tennessee's got to go to Kentucky this week. You talking about a program, we'll get into Kentucky in a few minutes, but I was totally misled about Kentucky. Mississippi State just hammers them. We'll talk about it. But Tennessee got a chance to get a win.
Right.
Now, can they do it or not? I don't know. I think the frustration is set in at Tennessee right now. Everybody's calling for Coach Jones's head. And I did a radio show in Tuscaloosa earlier today, Jerry, and I was asked that question. Okay, say you make a change at Arkansas and at Tennessee. Who do you hire? Well, first let's go back to when Butch Jones was hired and Brett Bielema was hired. They both had great credentials where they were. But the athletic directors at both schools did not look in to see if they fit the new program, and neither one fit. You look at Bielema coming out of Wisconsin. He had 3 Rose Bowl wins at that time when he got the job, but the Big Ten was down. I mean, He backed into those basically, but he got the wins. Got to Arkansas, he just hadn't worked. He's in his 5th year. Butch Jones came out of a Cincinnati, Eastern Michigan background, which is a little smaller Division I program. The things he did up there, he was very successful. Just doesn't work in the SEC. The gimmick thing is over. If you can't line them up and hit them in the mouth and knock them off the ball and run the ball and play good defense, you're not going to win the Southeastern Conference.
Well, I think Tennessee, the fans especially, were so poised after the Lane Kiffin debacle and all that.
You're right.
And they have really bought into Butch Jones in the beginning, gave him full support. I think they feel let down that all of their efforts, they got no reward
they do.
for.
And on top of that, he followed that up in quote, while he was rebuilding the program, with great recruiting classes. He had 3 of the top 5 he's had in the top 5 in the country.
Right.
It has not panned out for him for whatever reason. So set that aside. Butch Jones has got an uphill battle to maintain and just keep control of the program. They'll make a change, and I don't know when. Here's the thing about Coach Bielema and Coach Jones that I think a lot of fans miss about, well, let's let him play out his contract. Guys, they can't. This is the first time the Southeastern Conference has had an early signing period for recruits, early December, since the 70s. So now you got a whole different dimension. You let the guy stay till the end of the middle of December, they're going to miss that signing. Then they fire the coaching staff. Then all those guys that's committed, because remember, the signing date can be done, but if the kid has not signed by December, I believe, 14th or 15th, he has to wait till February to sign.
Right.
So now you got another long dead period, and now you're going to lose some kids. So I think those all have to now. Let's go from there to Arkansas.
Go ahead, and especially Bielema, because I don't think either one of we got some information. He may actually get to stay there.
Well, we heard that recently.
Yeah.
This depends on the athletic director and Jeff Long and some of the things that's going on over there. The fan base is up in Andrews. You people that watched the Auburn-Arkansas game this week, they lose 52-20 to Auburn. Auburn rebounded. We predicted they would rebound there, but it's chaos over there. The fan base. Jeff Long goes out and spends $165 million to add 10,000 seats to the stadium, which they hadn't had a sellout in 5 years.
Right.
So, and come to find out, when you see the big crowds, maybe a third of those tickets were given away to fill the stands up. But you also see what happens when they get behind, they disappear. If you looked at that ball game with Auburn the other night, a little after halftime, man, they were pouring out of there.
Right.
So, Arkansas's got their work.
It's more fun at the tailgate when you're losing that much than it is to sit
Absolutely.
in the stadium and keep taking the beat.
Arkansas is 2-5 right now in the 5th year of Bielema, who promised. Here's what I have said. If you watched his news conference, and I said this at Media Day, Jerry, the fact is that you listen to Brett Bielema speak, he's as good a sales guy as I've ever seen at that level. I mean, he's smooth. It doesn't matter about the pressure. He just rolls it off his tongue, and it gets where he wants to be. And that is, hey, we're close. We're getting there. We had an injury or two. They're going to be back. And my question now, you're close to what? You're close to losing your job is what you're close to.
Right.
And I think that's what's happening right now at Arkansas.
All right, move on to Ole Miss.
Arkansas goes to Ole Miss. I think they got a chance to win. Shea Patterson, the outstanding quarterback there, which their offense is built around at Ole Miss, went out with a knee injury. He's out for the year. So now they got to go to a junior college transfer. I watched him a little bit at the end of the ball game against LSU. He can't move the offense. He can't move around like Patterson did. So I think there's going to be a step down at Ole Miss, and that's another program we got in the rehab. They're 3-4 right now. Already been announced that Matt Luke is not going to be retained. He's going to stay as an interim to the end of the year. They're going to bring in a whole new coaching staff. Those names are swirling everywhere right now, and that can't be good for the team or for the coaching staff to know, hey, I'm going to get a paycheck this week, but, this new guy comes in. They may change that tomorrow.
I think Ole Miss will take care of Luke, though, don't you?
From everything we've heard, because he stepped up, he was offered the job at interim to try to hold it together, he's going to be rewarded for that, and I think that's admirable. One coach, and look, Matt Luke's been there, played there. His dad played there. I had his brother when we were there. All the things that the family can do for a program. He's been 14 years at Ole Miss. He's an Ole Miss guy inside and out. He's been the recruiting coordinator. That's the key to it. I think the new guy comes in, keeps Matt Luke as the offensive line coach and recruiting coordinator.
All right, let's move on. We're going to keep not totally dismantle or overhaul, but two teams that you want to talk about need some help, Kentucky and Mississippi State. Start with Kentucky.
Yeah, we'll start with Kentucky. They completely fooled me. I'll be honest with you. They were 5-1. Here's an example. What does it tell you about the East when Kentucky comes out of the East as a number 2 team behind Georgia? They're 5-1, and they're rolling at that particular time in the East. Mississippi State, on the other hand, they go to Starkville to play. Mississippi State is ranked in the middle to lower part of the hay, even though right now Mississippi State is 5-2 also. The only 2 games they lost to Georgia handsomely, and they lost to Auburn, both on the road. They play very well at home. We'll check out Mississippi State when they go to Texas A&M this week. But the fact is, I thought Kentucky could come in and give them a decent ball game. Listen, Mississippi State turned them every way but loose. They scored 45 points. I want to say, in fact, I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm stuttering there to kind of get the right score. Mississippi State hammered Kentucky.
Right.
You know,
right.
and there was no question about who was going to win that ball game. Fitzgerald had a great ball game.
40-something, I believe.
Right, yeah. But bottom line is they scored way more than, even the odds makers gave. Mississippi State was favored in that ball game, but I believe maybe 10 or 11 points to that thing. But they did a very, very good job. Kentucky, on the other hand, they entertained Tennessee coming up this weekend. They got a lot to prove on a rebound. How good is the East? You got Georgia and everybody else. South Carolina's doing pretty good, but Kentucky, I think they're out of it. They are 5 wins now. They're going to struggle to get 2 more to make 7. I think if they get bowl eligible at 6, they'll be lucky.
You think coaches are okay at Mississippi State and Kentucky for another year?
Oh yeah, look, Mississippi State, Dan Mullen stay as long as he wants to. Okay. He just went to number 2 in all-time wins, 66 wins since he's been the head coach. Followed by, he follows only Jackie Sherrill, who's got by far the most wins at Mississippi State. He's satisfied. Dan Mullen's name is going to keep popping up around the country, though, at some other jobs. If they do anything at Florida with McElwain, Scott Strickland was the athletic director at Mississippi State when Dan Mullen was there. So he's there at Florida. So just follow that scenario. And remember, Dan Mullen was the quarterback coach for Tebow with Urban Meyer at Florida also. He's very familiar with recruiting and what goes on at the University of Florida.
Yeah, and Tebow's been showing back up at Florida a little more lately. You just can't ever tell some stuff behind.
The politics at that level, Jerry, is almost unbelievable.
And it all happens through the attorneys and the agents so that they can deny everything. But you and I both know it's going on right now behind the scenes.
It is. And, you know, they say, hey, and they got plausible deniability. They said, hey, we hadn't talked to anybody. If the coach will say that, let me call my friend Jimmy Sexton in Memphis to see who he's talked to.
That's right.
That's the way it works.
We missed Missouri in that report. When we come back, we'll finish up with Missouri, and then we'll talk about Auburn, Alabama, and LSU as well. I want to remind you one more time to watch us on Facebook or like us on Facebook at Ask Game Day TV. Got a lot of stuff on there besides just this show. We also talk about high school football. I do a report every week from there, as well as telling you where you can watch high school games on the NFHS network. We'll get to Missouri when we come back right here on Game Day TV.
Home. It's where you take your time. Build the future. Make your memories. Celebrate. Come home. Alpha Insurance.
You can travel all over and you won't find another town with our name or our frame of mind. So much to do, so much to see. It comes down to this, it's easy to see. There's just one in the world, positively. Tuscaloosa, the one and only.
At Central State Bank, we are more than your local branch. Our digital lobby offers you the same great service you receive at our local offices, all from the convenience of your phone or home. Use mobile deposit, online banking, mobile wallet, and more. It is easy, convenient, and secure. Come by and see your personal banker or find out more at centralstatebank.com. This is just another way Central State Bank is large enough to serve you and small enough to know you.
Welcome back into Game Day TV. Coach, you should have left the hard hat on, but let's talk about Missouri before we move on.
Let's go. The Mississippi State-Kentucky score, I got to get that great. It's 45-7 in that ball game. Fitzgerald had over 270 yards, two touchdown passes, and 2 touchdown runs, doing a great job for Mississippi State. Let's talk about Missouri. We've had them on the rehab list every week. They got their second win this past week. We talked a little bit about they played Idaho for homecoming up there.
Right.
Okay, you say, well, Idaho, that's a Sun Belt conference. That's the same league Troy plays in. Missouri lit them up. The first play, Missouri throws a pick. Idaho intercepts it, runs it down about the 20. 3 plays later into the end zone, 7-0 the first minute and a half of the ball game.
Right.
After that, it was all Missouri. I'm telling you. 465 yards at halftime. The score ended up being 68-21. In fact, and here's the thing that a lot of people may not realize: the head coach at Idaho is a guy named Paul Petrino. Does that ring a bell? That's Bobby's brother that's at Louisville. He was the assistant coach. He was the offensive coordinator at Arkansas when they were both there before Bobby decided he liked to ride motorcycles.
Right.
And of course, that's another story for another day.
Right.
But the fact is Idaho couldn't stay on the field with them. Missouri's got another chance. They were 1-5. They won the opening game, lost 5 in a row. They have a chance to get somewhat healthy. They had an outstanding ball game this past week. They go to UConn this coming week. I think they win that one. They'll be 3-5. Then, bless their heart, they get back into the SEC. I think there'll probably be a coaching change with Bear.
You know, there's a little rumor going around that Arkansas's bought a couple of new motorcycles.
Well, look, they're struggling at Arkansas. They may take Bobby back.
Couldn't help it, guys.
I know. They may take him back.
All right, let's go to Alabama, Auburn, LSU. Where you want to start there? These teams had good weeks.
Well, they do. We'll save Alabama. Let's go to Auburn first. I think they had the most. Between they and LSU had the most to win or lose in that ball game. Auburn goes to Arkansas, and we predicted they'd get healthy. Coach Malzahn was extremely pleased. Said he had a good week of practice. I think what the whole perception was, by acknowledgement, is that they ran the ball 17 consecutive times on first down. They mixed that up. We talked a little bit about that during the ball game, Jerry. The fact is they ran and they could throw and run off the read option equally well, I think, against Arkansas. And they did it. They did a really good job, I think. Now, but to me, what solidified Auburn's offense was the return of Petway, the big running back from Prattville. 6'1", 240 pounds, and he is a load. He's had a foot problem, we know, for most of the season. Saw him limping still a little bit.
I was going to say, I'm not sure he's 100%.
No, he's not, but
he's that good.
He rushed for 90 yards, scored 2 touchdowns. He did what he had to do to give that Auburn a boost. They took the pressure off of Kerryon Johnson, and Johnson didn't have to run the ball 31 times like he did the week before. So hats off to Auburn. They did it. They got an off week this week. Here's what we're going to find out, much like we are this week.
Right.
Mississippi State goes to Texas A&M. This week, next week, Auburn goes to Texas A&M.
Right.
We're going to find out just how good Auburn is if they can play.
And this off week wouldn't do nothing but help Petway.
Absolutely.
And you look at what Auburn's got to accomplish. They got Texas A&M. They still got Georgia. Still got Alabama.
Right.
If they're doing nothing but getting Petway healthy, between him and Johnson, the 1-2 punch could make a difference against Georgia and Alabama.
And they allowed Stidham to run the read option, keep the ball.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean, well.
Now, you said he only ran because there were 8 people or whatever on the field.
Well, that was a read. Now, he was going to run it anyway. But the fact, what looked so good was there's only 8 out there. Right. There was an alley down there for 20 yards. He could still be running today.
That's right.
But anyway, Auburn's 6-2 right now. They get a week off. But the toughest part of their schedule is still ahead of them right now. Right. Then go to LSU.
LSU.
You know, you talk about LSU, you talk about what is the difference in them and when they lost to Troy and lost to Mississippi State early in the season. I think they really had a meeting of the minds, and that the players got together on one side, the coaching staff got together on the other. They didn't meet together, and this was the beginning of last week, and said, "Hey, we're going to win this football game. We're going to Oxford." Remember, there was a lot of other motivation with Ed Orgeron having been the head football coach at Ole Miss and did not leave under great terms. I think he was like 10-23 or something like that. Not a very successful run when he was at Ole Miss. When the story is from the head coach that was at Ole Miss and now at LSU, and he's coming back to play in Ole Miss, when the main story is what was his best place to eat, and it was chicken on a stick in an Exxon station, you got to know there's another whole planet out there somebody's working on. But anyway, they played well. Geis got well, right. 276 yards rushing. The Williams kid that plays number 2 behind Geis had 200 yards, had 100-yard receiving and 100-yard rushing. What does that tell you about the defense at Ole Miss? Right. But the worst part of that all is that they decided that with the defense, they was going to try to keep Patterson in the pocket, make him throw down the field. He tried to get out a couple of times. There was so much pressure on him. He ends up right before halftime going out with a knee injury. He tries to come back. He's limping, not well, and now the report came out yesterday he's out for the year. Yeah. So now Ole Miss is really going to have to struggle to do anything. But hats off to LSU. They're moving along now. They get an off week now. Are they good enough to play with Alabama? Was asked this morning, Jerry. What do you think the line's going to be when it open up next week? I think it's going to be 12 to 15 points Alabama in there. But now LSU plays Alabama close every year, normally. And I think this team will do the same thing. Alabama's going to have to play at another level than we saw this past week, in particular better than they played at Texas A&M. Right. I think they'll be ready to play. I think Alabama wins that probably by 2 touchdowns, but I think LSU makes a good showing there.
Alabama had another good week.
Oh, my gosh.
And we can beat Tennessee. We could do a whole show on nothing but Alabama, Tennessee. The cigars were lit early.
In the stands.
Yeah, I know.
Have you saw that?
I know it.
They were smoking them up, and I know for those of you that that's a tradition. The Alabama-Tennessee game, third Saturday in October, for years and years. But Alabama it is run in cycles. But Alabama's won 11 in a row now.
And the way it looks, Max, it's going to be another 11.
Oh, it is.
Well, I've never seen such a disparity.
It is disparity in talent level.
Yeah.
And that's going to force a change at Tennessee. We all know that. There's a new athletic director, new college president there that Butch Jones has no connection to whatsoever. So I think the demand from the fan base will have a change there. Alabama wins 45-7 in that ball game. I told you I watched the lines on this, not the offensive defensive line, but the lines out of Vegas to get a feel. And I don't do anything. I never have gambled on games, but I like to get a feel for how the fan base feel. Right. You can watch those lines, and if they shift during the week, that means one fan base is not agreeing, and they're going to step up and make a change. Not only did they open up at 34.5, it went to 37 by Friday. And I'm sitting there watching. 2 minutes to go in the game. We talked about this last night. I'm watching that ball game. I'm saying, God, they're not even going to cover that. And what does Tua come in?
Yeah.
A pass right down the middle. Stepped in the end zone. They covered.
Well, that was one of the best passes I've ever seen. And he threaded that needle perfectly.
It was 2 guys in between, man.
You couldn't. I mean, that hard hat was the only space he had to put that ball,
right.
And he put it in there. So
he did it. So hats off to Alabama. They roll on again. They get an off week, get ready for LSU coming up. So I think the Southeastern Conference at the top is going to be healthy this last month. Now, for those teams 3, 4, 5, and 6 on down in each division.
Right.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
While we got a little bit of time left, let's jump on to Florida at Georgia coming up.
Oh man, that's the biggest cocktail party in the world. I've done at least 10 shows from down at the wharf in Jacksonville. Now that is absolutely the biggest one though is when that Saturday falls on Halloween. I mean, there's some things don't even happen on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. It's bad down there. But the fact is Georgia wins that ball game. Florida doesn't have enough depth. They don't have enough talent that can play. Jim McElwain has found himself in with 10 suspensions. He's had 3 or 4 key injuries.
Right.
They're going to have to come back. And I just read a complete review this morning about what Florida will have to do to beat Georgia. They can't do any of them. They got to have a great running game, which they've run in with 2 backs. It is average at best. They got to be able to throw the ball down the field. Franks can't get that done. And then the quarterback has to run. Franks has had 1 run of about 60 or 70 yards this year. The rest of them have been under 5. So none of that works. I think Georgia goes to Jacksonville. They are 14-point favorite, guys. Let me tell you. You say, well, that's not much is the way they're playing. That is the biggest margin of a line since 1980. I mean, that's how close that ball game has played between the 2 teams all the years in the past. So I like Georgia to win. I think they win by more than 14.
Both coaches a protege of Nick Saban.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be interesting. I wonder before the game they'll be talking about what Nick said or whatever.
Well, he'll be saying, what would Nick do?
That's right. That's right.
And you know what? Neither one of them want to say.
That's right.
They aren't going to, I think, expose what they've got playing. But the fact is that the defensive side of the ball under Kirby Smart will win this ball game because the best side of the ball at Georgia right now is defense.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We're going to talk about high school. I'm going to break down the top 10 again as we usually do and tell you what happened. And then we're going to throw some brackets up on the screen. Very interesting stuff. We'll talk about it when we come back right here on Game Day TV.
How do you show love? With the big things? The little things? The tough things? Your everything. Show them you care. Alpha Insurance.
Central State Bank is your hometown bank with signature personal service at 5 convenient locations in Shelby County. For more than 100 years, we've been large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. Come by and see us and visit us online at centralstatebank.com.
Sundown Tint is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond's Hooper Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano-ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown Tint in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
Down the middle. I believe it is. Oh, Kiki Matthews, my goodness.
Hope you enjoyed how we started this high school segment off. That's the NFHS Network's highlight for this past week in high school football. Max, some big high school football games coming
Well, it's
up.
getting to be your time of the year. And
It
we
is.
talked about that before. Of all the high school games I go to, I'm there looking at individual talent for the next. You're
Right.
there looking at teams because you've got to draw the brackets. You've got to kind of project out who's going to go where when it comes to high school football. And I've looked over here on your screen and on your notes.
Right.
You're ready to roll.
Well, I am. Let's start, first of all, with the top 10 like we always do in 5A. We're just quickly going to hit some of those highlights to let you know. We'll start down actually at number 7. Etowah, they beat Crossville 42-6, moving up to Alexandria. They lost to Gunnersville 17-0, so we'll see how that plays out. Number 5, Winona, they beat Fairfield 34-0. Their next game will be against St. Clair County. And then 4 through 1, big news there. Beauregard is now your Region 4 champs as they beat Claiborne County 48-20. They play next against Lincoln. Carroll secured their region with a Region 2 5A championship. They beat Escambia County 28-6. St. Paul's, they lost to Viger. This is one of the games that we don't even know how this is going to play out till we get to the brackets, but Viger actually is a Region 1 champ, and they're not even in the top 10, so we'll see how that plays out. But next week, St. Paul's plays Faith Academy. They'll get well in a hurry. Briarwood Christian continues to roll over Shelby County 39-14. They play Pleasant Grove next week, but they secure the Region 5 championship there as well. So that's your 5A report. Now let's move on to 6A and see how some of these teams did. In 6A, we'll start with number 6, Homewood. And while I'm on Homewood, I want to thank John Lunsford. He's a big Homewood graduate, played there on the state championship team. He'll be happy because his team is now 7-0. They won the Region 5 championship by beating Shades Valley 37-27, and they're at home against Hueytown coming up. Moving on up to number 5, Spanish Fort beat Saraland 34-7. Number 4, Wetumpka, they lost to Opelika 20-19 in an exciting ball game. Next week, the next week after this, they go to play Benjamin Russell, who's ranked number 8 in the state. That ball game should be the ball game, and I have to double check to make sure it is, for the region championship there next week against Ben Russell. Pinson Valley, they just keep on rolling behind Bo Nix 55-7 over Gardendale. They secure the Region 6 championship. Oxford beats Pell City 32-0. They're open next week, but they're Region 7 champions. And Austin, they beat Muscle Shoals 42-14. They play at home against Athens next week, but they're your Region 8 champs in 6A. So that's how your top 10 stacks up in there. Let's move on now to 7A. The big guys have come out to play, folks. This is very interesting how this 7A bracket is going to shape up. Sparkman down at number 10. They beat Gadsden City 38-13. They go to Grisham next week. The only surprise there, not surprise, but the comment there to make is a lot of people at the first year thought Gadsden City was going to be better than they are, including Ben Thomas from AL.com. He was our very first guest on this Game Day TV show, but it hasn't panned out that way. Congratulations to Bob Jones and Kevin Rose, the head coach up there, as they beat Grisham 21-0 to make it into the playoffs. And I'm going to say Fairhope and move up to Auburn. They beat Smith Station 52-7. They play Jeff Davis next week. You'll be able to see that game live on the NFHS network. The reason I skipped Fairhope is to talk about McGill-Tulane. In 2 weeks, they play each other. They're both undefeated in the region. The winner of that game will win their region. Can McGill-Tulane continue to their winning ways and stay undefeated?
Here's the deal. As I remember going back early when we first started, Jerry,
right.
McGill-Tulane was building. This is a rebuilding year. They had 21 or 22 seniors from last year.
That's exactly
now,
right.
To me, that tells you they got a really sound coaching staff because they built their program from the ground up.
Well, and Fairhope's coming on strong.
Yeah,
so, they're undefeated. They got 1 loss this year, but it was out of region. So this is just going to be a big, big ball game. But that game's in 2 weeks. So we move on now to number 4, Hewitt-Trussell. They continue to roll. They beat Huntsville 45-3. They're your Region 4 champs. They go back up to that area and play at James Clemens next week. Now, man, I want to tell you what. This coming up that I'm about to talk about, I don't even know how you can describe how big this is. You've got Thompson
They need to go to Legion Field to play this ball game now.
They need to go somewhere, but they're going to play it at the Hoover Met. Obviously, I'm talking about Thompson and Hoover. It's that week, folks. It's finally gotten here. Thompson comes off of beating Huffman 41-8. Hoover comes off beating Vestavia 17-7. I've been asked for the last 2 weeks, who do I like, who do I think? I'm not going to say. It's just going to be played Friday night. I'll be in Tallahassee calling a ball game for the NFHS network, so I won't get to see it live.
But you'll be listed to it.
I'll be watching it. I'll be watching it while I'm calling one game on the NFHS network. I'll be watching that game because it's going to be broadcast live on the NFHS network. If you want to know how to watch that game, go to NFHSnetwork.com, click on the Hoover, and it'll let you go right in there to watch this.
The winner could be
important
the
game.
state champion out of that.
I think, well, obviously. We've talked about the 5 teams all year.
Yep.
The other one, at number 1 there, is Central Phoenix City. They beat Lee Montgomery 52-30. So, as we know, and we're going to move on to brackets now. We're going to save 7A for just a minute, and we're going to move to 1A brackets. We're going to put that up on your screen. I'm not going to talk much about it, but we all know in 1A the teams to watch there will be Maplesville, of course, on one side. You got Sweetwater. You've got Coosa Christian, Cherokee. You got Spring Garden. You got Hackleburg. All those teams in the 1A. I want to give a shout out to Jocks Preps. This is their bracket and how they see it folding out. And so you always listen to my friends, our friends, John Lunsford, Tim Melton every night at 6 o'clock on WJOX every night of the week. But John and Aaron Daniel do the Jocks Preps report there for WJOX out of Birmingham. This is how they broke it down, so just wanted to give them a shout out and a thank you. Moving on to 2A now, in this bracket, you can look and see where your team may fall. These are not all guaranteed yet. Now, some of these are still to be determined, as we mentioned. Of course, you always want to look at Reeltown. They're always good in 2A. You're going to have Fife this year. That's very good. Elba's good. Aliceville's good again. Goshen, St. Luke's, all those teams there in 2A. We switch over now to 3A, a team I happen to know a little bit about. T.R. Miller, you'll see them in the top left-hand corner of this bracket. That I project them to play Pike County. We're going down that list. You know that Mobile Christian is a good team. They should play south side of Selma, have no problem in the first round there. Montgomery Academy, Hillcrest Evergreen, a team we talk about every week, seems to always quietly win. On the other side of the bracket, that will be your south bracket. You know, the state in brackets now is broke down north and south, and that's how they'll play it at Bryant-Denny this year. Look for J.B. Pennington, Piedmont, always good, Fultondale, and Sylvania and Lauderdale County as well in that 3A bracket, so that's going to be good. Moving on now to 4A. Here's how 4A in the south region should stack up. I've always liked Thomasville, but they're playing Montford. Now, just to get off this bracket just a little bit, Montford's going to play Leeds coming up this week. That's the biggest rivalry. Man, I don't know why those two teams get at each other, but they do. So look for that. The winner of that, Montford, should come out on top, be the second seed in Region 3. Tallahassee, a good ball team there. You see them. They should be either the third or fourth or second seed in that third region. That's why I'm going down to call that game this Friday night on the NFHS network. Alabama Christian looks good. W.S. Neal will travel to Leeds probably, depending on the outcome of the Leeds Montford game that we talked about just a minute ago. Andalusia, a very good ball team as well. Then you move up, I should say, to the north. looking at Randolph, Rogers, Jacksonville's good, Fayette County's good, Wilson, Madison Academy is always in it. One team that's always mentioned in the playoff, Bechler, and should be playing Dora, which that'll make some folks up at Alabama Cable Network very happy, as that's in that area. They always follow the Dora team there, and Sac. So big 4A brackets as well. There's all the teams we project, or they project, I should say, my friends at Jocks Preps projects. Okay, in 5A, moving on there, it just keeps getting tighter and tighter. Calera should be in it. Beauregard, we know, is going to be in it. They should play Greenville at first. Viger, they had that big win. Don't count Viger out. They play Marbury. Marbury's sneaking in, I think, to the brackets, so that should be a good ball game. Carroll has secured the region win there. They'll play Talladega, or should. Central Clay County will make it in there. Demopolis, we got a lot of viewers down in Demopolis. They always are good and kind to us to send us messages. Demopolis is going to make the playoffs. They have secured the region. They'll play Jackson. If you know anything about me, every time I talk about Jackson, Max, they play at Legion Field is what it's called at Jackson. I want to tell y'all something if you've never been to a game in Jackson. It's like a closed end zone on one side. Across the street, when you kick the extra point or a field goal, it goes across the street and onto somebody's house. They've taken those houses across the street in that end zone and built decks, and they sell actual club memberships to stand on those decks and watch it. Never seen tailgating like goes on in a college, in a high school. The whole town, the Legion Field is located in a community, and all the houses around that decorate for the game every week. It's just a spectacle. That's
the way it used to be in the South.
Absolutely.
You know that. You shut down the town. Would shut down at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody, that was the weekly social event. Was a high school football game,
and it still is in a lot of towns. Thomasville, Jackson immediately come to mind. And by the way, if your school, your town, you do that, send us a message. You want to like us on Facebook, we take our messages right there. Eufaula's going to be good. And, of course, we talked about St. Paul's all year in 5A. Moving over now to the other side of the division, you're going to have some other good teams. Alexandria is playing good. Mae Jemison out of Huntsville. We know about Winona in Birmingham. Mortimer Jordan. Brooks, be happy to know Brooks is doing very well this year. Brooks is Myra Miles' favorite team now that she's retired from Hoover. She lives up that way. She follows the Brooks, and I always love to hear her comments on it. Etowah's going to be in there. Hayden, and of course the #1 team in the state, Briarwood Christian, will win that region 5, and probably will play Crossville there. So there's your 5A brackets the way we see it. We still got 6 and 7A to go, and this is where some of the races get really, really tight. Let's put up 6A now, and here's how the 6A brackets will look. Saraland should play Opelika in that top left-hand corner bracket there, and they'll fall down underneath. They'll play the winner of Stanhope Elmore and Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. Hillcrest Tuscaloosa is guaranteed into that spot already. Wetumpka, with a loss this week to Opelika, they'll play Daphne. Both of those teams, very good first-round teams. They'll play the winner of Bessemer City and Park Crossing. I went down this past Friday night, and called the Park Crossing game that they played against Sidney Lanier. It was one of the wildest ball games. It's one of those games that had everything, Max. It had block punts. But what I really want to get to is it was an unsettling ball game. But a lot of mistakes made on both sides of the ball, and to be honest with you, a little bit on the officiating. Clock was stopped one time near the end of the first half that it shouldn't have been, but it came out like it was supposed to be, and they got it right. But Park Crossing, quite possibly the hardest hitting defense, I told you that, that I've seen all year. They're fast. They're not exceptionally fast, but man, when they get to you, they're gonna pop you.
They just show up with an attitude. Don't
they show up with a brick wall.
Yeah, see,
that's what they show up with, and so we'll continue to watch Park Crossing and see how they go. Carver Montgomery will play McAdory. McAdory is already in that slot, guaranteed. Blunt will play Ben Russell probably, and then you got Paul Bryant. They guaranteed that slot against Sidney Lanier. And Pelham should play Spanish Fort, and congratulations to the Pelham Panthers for making it in there. Moving on now to the north bracket, Shades Valley will play Pell City. Again, that's a guaranteed slot. Congratulations to Keith Etheridge and Pell City's bringing that team out just like everybody knew he would. Carver of Birmingham will play Austin. Austin, a guaranteed slot. Coleman will play Ramsey. Both of those guaranteed. Congratulations to defending state champ Ramsey for making it back into the playoffs in another rebuilding year. Florence will play Pinson Valley. Pinson Valley guaranteed in that slot as well. Bo Nix, and we talked about him before. Now congratulations to Muscle Shoals. They'll play Gardendale. When you and I both do radio shows up in that area, we know Brett and all of them will be excited on the score up there on that radio station. Know that Muscle Shoals has got that secured spot. Jackson Olin will play Oxford. Athens, guaranteed slot against Clay Chalkwell. That's going to be a great first round ball game. And then Albertville will play the Homewood Patriots. And as I mentioned earlier, nobody happier than John Lunsford there in the 6A to see that his team has come back and guaranteed a slot in the playoffs. Now we're going to move on over to 7A, and this is the division that everybody's talking about. We're going to have some great matchups in that as well. We'll look to the left side there of your screen as we put up 7A. Davidson will play Auburn probably. Jeff Davis will probably play McGill-Tulane. We talked about that depending on the outcome of McGill-Tulane and Fairhope game in 2 weeks. Lee Montgomery, no slouch at all of a team. They'll play either McGill-Tulane or Fairhope. And then Foley makes it in the playoffs, and they get rewarded by making it in the first round to play the number 1 team in the state with Jamie Dubose and Central of Phoenix City. Now you look over to the other side. This is where it gets interesting again. You got Mountain Brook playing Bob Jones. I think that's going to come down to a field goal ball game. And I said congratulations to Bob Jones and Kevin Rose up there in that area for making it. Gadsden City will play Hoover. We mentioned that Gadsden City, even though they made the playoffs, they're not what most people expected them to be this time of year. They'll probably draw Hoover, of course, depending on the outcome of the Hoover-Thompson game this coming Friday night. Sparkman, you see there in red, has already made it to the playoffs. They'll either play Hoover or Thompson. I got them projected to play Thompson. And then in the bottom bracket, the 2 guaranteed teams will be a great ball game, Spain Park and Hewitt-Trussell. If you look and follow those brackets out to see, quite possibly you're going to have a winner of Hoover up there playing Bob Jones, and then as it projects on out, sooner or later, Hoover is probably going to end up playing Hewitt-Trussell, although Thompson's got something to say about that. I just can't talk about these brackets any more excitingly than to tell you, folks, this is as good as it gets, Max.
Well, it is. We know by the time you start talking about that, we know the season's almost over.
That's right.
And this is where it all culminates. Even though you would think at the high school level, a team that's got 6 wins and 3 losses this time, they can still get the playoff. Absolutely.
And you know, we talked about never before has there been this many good teams up top, undefeated teams with great quarterbacks, great D1 prospects. That's your high school report. No, I flew through it, but I hope your team is in the brackets. And I want to thank Jocks Preps once again for providing that information to Game Day TV. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Max is going to talk about upcoming games in the SEC right here on Game Day TV.
How do you show love? With the big things? The little things? The tough things? Your everything. Show them you care. Alpha Insurance.
Central State Bank is your hometown bank with signature personal service at 5 convenient locations in Shelby County. For more than 100 years, we've been large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. Come by and see us and visit us online at centralstatebank.com.
Sundown 10 is the only company in Central Alabama authorized to sell Autobond's Hooper Optics nanotechnology window tint film. We are the best because we sell the best. With Hooper Optic, you get the first patented nano-ceramic window film with 3 times more infrared rejection. It's 25 times more durable than competing films and 13 degrees cooler. This cutting-edge technology provides remarkable performance and cool European styling, and you can only get it at Sundown 10 in Hoover. For the best window film installed by the best team, Sundown is the place to go.
Well, welcome back in, everyone. Kim Shera under the weather again this week. hope she gets better soon, but she'll be back next week with game day weather. But as fate would have it, Auburn, Alabama off anyway, so that's perfect week. We don't care what it's going to do in Tennessee.
Absolutely right.
So
I don't even think the fans in Tennessee care what they go to Kentucky. By the way.
Right.
So anyway,
all right. And so still out of breath from that high school report. Hope you enjoy. We're going to try to do those brackets the next couple of weeks. I think that's very interesting. We'll see how they break down. And once again, want to thank Jocks Preps for their participation. Okay, Max, let's move on down. We got Mississippi State now going to Texas A&M.
We did, and I think now we're going to find out two things. I think we're going to find out the real Mississippi State. How good is Fitzgerald? We know he's led the conference last year in combined yardage, both passing and running. He's a 6'5", 250-pound kid. If you watch that Kentucky game, the first read option play he ran was about 60 or 70 yards. He had 270 yards total offense by himself this past week. He's a one-man demolition team himself. But I think John Chavis at A&M will have they'll have another story built up. I think what Kevin Summers doing at A&M is he's turned the defense over to Chavis, and they're going to try to box up the quarterback situation and make him throw the ball down the field, which he's a pretty adequate quarterback. But anyway, that ball game, Mississippi State goes to A&M. We'll get a read on both of those teams. Is Mississippi State better than we thought? Up to now, they are. I mean, they had them ranked. Everybody we saw had them ranked next to last in the Southeast Conference, particularly in the West. So, we'll find out how good they are. A&M is a team on the rise, and I like playing out there. If they were playing in Starkville, hands down, I think Mississippi State wins. And go to College Station, that may be a little different story. I think A&M barely gets by, but they're going to have to play an outstanding ball game to win that one. You and I talked about this upcoming game with Tennessee and Kentucky. You don't know. It's almost so bad it's going to be an entertaining game. It could be. That could be 0-0 right at the end of the game. Right. Somebody kick a field goal to win it. I can't get a read. I thought I was so mistaken about Kentucky. I thought now, but what it shows to me is the Southeastern Conference in the Eastern Division is really down. You take Georgia out of that, and that's a train wreck. Everybody over there. So I think we'll get a chance. Tennessee has a chance, because I think they've got more talented athletes than Kentucky does right now. They do play in Lexington, though. Right. That's a plus for the University of Kentucky. So I think it's going to be probably a not so pleasant game to watch, regardless of who you pull for. Tennessee's got a chance to win it. Whether they can do it or not, I don't even go out on a limb and pick that one. That could be ugly. That's all I can say. Well, let's move on now. Ole Miss, Arkansas, another one. Oh, man. Here's another one. You don't know. It's just some bad games coming up, but I would have taken Ole Miss in a heartbeat if Patterson had not gotten hurt. Right. But that's their offense. That's their whole offense. Their running game is anemic, to say the least. Their defense is very poor and porous. But the fact is, what's Arkansas? I did hear this morning that it does look like Austin Allen's going to be back. His shoulder's pretty well healed now. The 6'8" behemoth that they had back there, that you had to jump on his back to knock him down. Right. Here's what Auburn did to him, as far as Arkansas was concerned. They would grab on to him and somebody tried to take the ball away from him. And that worked for a couple of times for Auburn this past week. Arkansas's got a chance to win, and I think Arkansas probably gets that win mainly because they can run the football and Ole Miss can't stop the run. Missouri goes all the way up to UConn. They get their third win, I believe, this week. They were 1-5. They hammer Idaho this past week, scored 68 points on Idaho. I think they take that throwing philosophy. Locke is an outstanding quarterback. I mean, he's an NFL player, to say the least. But they have nothing else to go with him. But I do like them going, and I like Missouri going. They get the third win for their record for this year, but they got to come back after that, and they got 3 or 4 SEC teams, and I think they still finish last, and I do think they have a coaching change as far as Barry Odom's concerned. That's interesting. Okay, Vandy in South Carolina. We've been on with Will Muschamp forever. We let up off of him. Well, this could be a good game. Vandy may show up. They may, and I think that the key to this is going to be they play in Columbia. So the fact is if you look at the way South Carolina has come through some very traditional wins, right? They do a good job in coaching, and you say, all right, how you say they play to stay even to halftime. And Muschamp and his staff do an excellent job in making adjustments at halftime. Right. And they come back and win it at the end. I think the same thing will happen. I think they shut down the running game for Vanderbilt. I think they play probably close, maybe a touchdown or 3 points to halftime. Then I think South Carolina pulls away. The people at William Bryce are avid fans, and I told you, made the statement before. My daughter's a season ticket holder. She and her husband, and they go and they tailgate, and they got a pretty. They got hands-on what the fan base expects. They expect him to win this football game, and I think Muschamp, maybe he's close to getting Coach of the Year if they can win this one and win out in the end.
Wow! So that's a big compliment from you coming toward Muschamp. So because we haven't been on his bandwagon very much. Hey, I want to tell you, next week we're going to have Game Day Chef Marty Staples joining us again. We'll do another segment of Game Day tips on tailgating. And I post or I shouldn't say I do, Bridget Kane, our social media director, posts the recipes on our Facebook page. So if you've seen Marty the last couple of times that we've shown that segment, you'll know that his recipes are on Facebook. Go to Facebook at Ask Game Day TV and like us.
And you got to love this. What I love about it is I get to take home all the stuff that's left over from the tailgate party. Look, he's fed me for 2 weeks here. You know that.
I'm telling you. We had fun doing the segment. We got it in the can, as we call it. We'll show it to you next week during the last segment. But so Alabama and Auburn off this week, Max.
And LSU as well. And
LSU.
Why that's important, because Alabama and LSU play each other next week.
Right.
So Auburn goes to Texas A&M. All three teams need that off week to get healthy and really get prepared for that ball game. The psychological edge between Alabama and LSU is going to be almost a toss-up. I think LSU will want to work harder. Alabama knows they have to work harder to be able to maintain. So I think gearing up for really an outstanding weekend next weekend, Jerry.
All right, before we get to what's for supper, I want to mention a couple of our sponsors. One is, as I mentioned, Marty Staples does our tips on tailgating. That's brought to you by Doremus Sausage. Doremus Sausage ships straight to your house. You can find them by going to DoremusSausages.com. I want to thank Herb and all the folks down there for sponsoring that tailgating segment. Also, BedazzleMeMore.com. Bedazzle Me More provides all of our cups and our shirts and our caps and everything we use, official game day apparel provider. So you want to go there. If you want a game day shirt or cap, she can do it for you, or any of your favorite schools, just go there. Our other sponsors as well, as we've had throughout the year. And the reason I say that, Max, we're about halfway through the season now. So all of our sponsors, as they have been all year long, are with us, and we just want to thank all of them.
And sitting here at show number 10, halfway through the season, where'd the time go?
Yeah,
I mean, if when you're having fun, I guess the old adage, if you're having fun, time flies.
That's right. We got a couple more weeks in high school regular season, then we go to the real season, which is the playoffs. Got a lot to talk about there. We got upcoming guests this year. Yeah. The Super 7 will be at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and Don Staley, the Director of Sports and Tourism at Tuscaloosa, is going to join us in studio for that game the week before that game. So a lot coming up. Okay, I wanted to save you a little bit of time, and I'm about to run out of it. Let's talk about, hey, Max, what's for supper?
Hey, well, look, I'm going with one of your favorites, and I know you love to do this. I do a chunk roast in a crock pot. Yeah. Now, I know you do yours a little bit different, but the fact the end result is the same. Mm-hmm. You know, when you do a beef roast, and cover that thing. It's got brown gravy. You got the new potatoes and the carrots and the onions and a little bit of celery in it. And let that thing cook all day where the meat just falls apart. Have I sold it right the way you love it?
I'm not. I can't talk when you talk about this.
Look, the brown gravy to me is the part. You put a little flour in the little grease, a little water in that thing. You stir that at the bottom after all that dripping has come off that roast. I don't see how you're getting much better than that.
That's pure Southern cooking.
It is, but
that's supper.
That is supper time. It's what for supper, and that's why we do that. I do a coleslaw. I do a mustard coleslaw, and I don't know whether we've done that yet or not. But I do a mustard. Not only is it really, and I chip up some green peppers in it, and that cabbage and the mustard and the green. I mean, it jumps off at you at the table. In addition to being very, very good, I do a relish dish on the side with some onions and pickles and cucumbers and all. Jalapeno cornbread. I'm telling you, you know I'm going to do something that's tangy. I love that jalapeno cornbread with my roast. You know, I'm not above taking a piece of that jalapeno cornbread and crumbling it up in the gravy.
I know.
You know, you've seen me operate that way. Wash all that down with a big old pitcher of sweet iced tea. And for dessert, I go back to the kitchen now. I go to the oven, and I pull out a blackberry cobbler right from the oven. It's going to be warm. I put it in a dish, and guess what? I top it with 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream.
Got to.
Now, when you eat that, if you don't need to take a nap, then you need to come see me. I got another one for you.
All right, folks. If you're not ready to eat, it's not my fault. It's Tuesday night. I hope you enjoyed that. Go cook something. Okay, that's this edition for Game Day TV. Max, a good show. We appreciate you joining us, whether you're watching us on Alabama Cable Network up north in Alabama or on Facebook. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on Game Day TV.